The weird tale is a modern tradition, a hybrid of the ghost story, the Gothic romance, a 19th century decadent style that was a touchstone for the original self-styled weird writers like Lovecraft and Clark Ashton Smith. The idea of ghosts is an old one, and ghost stories have a history dating back as old as literature itself. But the Gothic novel and the decadence are distinct periods in art. The weird tale was a result of the coming together of these styles, as well as a literary response to the times, especially modernism and the existential trauma of World War I. Then the publication of Weird Tales in 1923 formed a starting point for a canoning process, with Lovecraft's impressively broad essay on supernatural literature probably being the second. In that essay, Lovecraft surveys the landscape of supernatural literature that had inspired him and others, and forms perhaps the single most important review of the literature up to that point. There are distinct categories of story that have come to define the vocabulary of the weird. Lovecraft's decadent and quasi-science fiction tales perhaps being the most well-known, but being only one voice in a cosmos of other visions. Clark Ashton Smith's Empire of Dreams, Robert E. Howard's Machismo mythology, each successfully crafts unique visions and can most definitely be described as weird stories. My personal fascination with these stories has stretched over years, and I've become increasingly familiar with the supernatural tradition that has generated so many of the props and tropes for these stories, the pioneers of strange tales who innovated and invented through raw imagination. I'm especially interested in the interim period between the century of Gothic stories, which I'll date roughly between Walpole's Otranto and Bronte's Wuthering Heights, and the establishment of the North American magazine Weird Tales. This has been called the Golden Age of the Ghost Story, and while some of these will feature in these short video essays, I want to focus on the innovators who took these tropes in new directions, those master writers who paved the way for the weird tale. Of course, these descriptive distinctions are largely arbitrary, overlaying a rich spread of various artistic endeavours, but there are distinct periods of development between the clunky tales of the early Gothic stories, the sophisticated psychology of the late Gothic novels, the pioneers of the weird and the modern weird tale, a progression from the clanking of chains for effect to the cosmic insignificance that would come to earmark the actual weird story. These novels and shorts between the Gothic and the weird create a rich period of imagination, uncanny atmospheres and strange characters. There are also a wide sea of failures, laborious purple prose and tedious tales. This series is an attempt to survey some of those stories, particularly those that have personally resonated and created that strange sense of the sublime that both attracts and repels. Some may be known to you, others, hopefully, will whet your appetite and help you to take an inquisitive bite. These stories play with familiar tropes, but in failing to be purely Gothic or rigidly about the supernatural, they begin to signal the modern. They occasionally feature castles or large houses, or exploit moody weather and atmosphere. They dance with macabre characters and societal taboos, but they depart from the formal Gothic props that even gems like the fall of the House of Usher, Frankenstein and Wuthering Heights so masterfully exploit. These tales seem familiar yet strange. In some cases their reach exceeds their grasp, but in every way they are truly pioneers of the weird. And I hope that these brief but strange surveys allow you to enjoy them as much as I have.